Alrighty, hello everybody, and welcome back to Jay's One Key Event, 3rd edition, also known as Joke 3. Now you might be wondering, why are we having a stream on a Tuesday? We already had the Grand Final Showcase yesterday. And to that, I answer, good question. Schedules. Plus it's winners finals. Got a score to settle between the number 1 and number 2 seed of this tournament. It is Ham taking on Grape Tea to see who solidifies a guaranteed silver medal in this tournament. As always, my name is Sparky and I'm joined in the commentary booth by nobody, because nobody is awake at this hour to commentate with me, so I'm doing a bit of a solo job here as we have finished the warm-up in the background. Always love to see it. And we're going to get into the rolls. Ham rolling the powerful 99, while Grape Tea responds with a 8, which is pretty close. It's about as close as you can get without winning, because you can only win with 100, but regardless. We're going to see the bands come out. Grape Tea wasting 0 time, going to bend the SV chart, which is W equals addict. And we wait for Ham to ban something out as well. Now there are some pretty interesting options, but I think the best option out of all of these is going to be the stream pick, and unsurprisingly, I'm going to get rid of that one as well. So quickly through the bans, we're going to get into the first pick, which goes over to Ham by virtue of that 99, and now we have a bit of an interesting dichotomy that's going to begin to develop here, because both of these players are very evenly matched in terms of rice proficiency. So they're probably going to duke it out there to settle who has the better accuracy between the two players, and it's going to be starting on Vanguard 1. Rice 2 is going to be the first pick to start this match off. A very rhythmically intense chart, just shy of 2 minutes, but those 2 minutes you are bombarded with so many polyrhythms to have to deal with, as can be expected with 2L as an artist. And without further ado, we are now officially into the match. As a reminder, this is a best of 11. First player to 6 points will be seeing themselves through to the winners' grand finals, where they'll await the winner of the loser of this match versus whoever won in the losers' finals. And right now it is the battle of what is essentially 2 human metronomes going at it against each other. And falling behind ever so slightly. Imagine being able to say a 99.92 would not guarantee you the lead, because your opponent is holding on to what was 100% accuracy through the first third of the chart. But it does only account for about 1,000 points between them. It is a 1/10% separating them, a number of 300s that could probably be counted on one hand at the moment from Grape Tea, versus the number that Ham is dropping. And that is probably going to come down to who blinks first, who finds that first miss. And sometimes it doesn't have to be a miss. It could just be a singular 200 that could ruin one of these 2 incredible runs. Right now we do see Grape Tea falling from that perch of 100% down 500 of a percent to 99.95. Ham still about a 1/10 of a percent behind. Does grow this advantage ever so slightly as we continue on towards this ending. And it seems like they've both settled in quite nicely into this chart, not falling for any of the pitfalls throughout, just finding a number of 300s here or there, and that is going to make all the difference here as the first pick goes over the way of Grape Tea. 36-92, a double V1 double S. And that is the first breakpoint in this match. Alrighty, so with that out of the way, Grape Tea up to pick first, and they're going to go for Rice 1. So sticking with this top half of the pool, going to be Astronaut. Again, another pretty short map overall. A little bit less technically demanding than Vanguard 1 was, but still pretty difficult in its own right. Pretty speedy pick overall without being a dedicated speed pick. And here we go, quickly underway with the second map of this best of 11. Opening bursts handled pretty nicely by both players at the moment. I imagine the marker that both of them are aiming for is this 99.9, but Ham actually picking up, I believe, singular 200 on one of those streams, going to drop them down about 0.2% compared to Grape Tea. Still plenty of time. This is the opening sequence. And there are some pretty evil patterns lurking throughout this chart. A lot of doublets that could trip you up, cause you to drop some unnecessary 200s. And those elongated runs. Supposed to be hard, but for these two, pretty much a walk in the park. Just a matter of maintaining concentration through those transitions. And that'll probably be the main objective for both of them, just maintaining the streaks through some of those heavier transitions. The snapping does change rather dramatically as we make our way into the second half of the chart. And as we make our way into the last quarter, the deficit is actually tightened up a little bit. Ham making a relentless charge back up into that 99.9% range, but Grape Tea is still up on that perch, 99.95 for them, giving them a very fragile lead going into this outro. And none of these stream transitions going from the 1/4 to the 1/6s and back have yet to catch anybody out, and they won't at the end of the day. Grape Tea still with the higher accuracy between the two players, 25 this time around to the very impressive 63 of Ham, and they capture their own point to capitalize on that break point to make it 2-0 now. And now questions they need to be answered from Ham in terms of what do they need to go into to try and scratch the armor, this impenetrable wall that is Grape Tea. Some immaculate accuracy on display here as it stands, and they're going to opt to go for Hybrid 1 here to try and break some of this momentum. It's going to be Deep Ocean. Right now, some confusion going on here. I believe Ham had the categories mixed up. Hybrid 1 is Deep Ocean. The map that Ham is referring to is Alan 1. Siu Songi. So they might change their pick here, because I think they might have intended to go for the Tokiwa map. Understandable. When you do pick based off the category instead of the name. So, gonna wait and see. Gonna see if we do get the swap over. Alrighty, so we're going to stick with Hybrid 1 here, so it is going to be Deep Ocean getting played. Here we see a very strong start from Ham. At the moment, Grape3 actually finding a bit of a rough start by their standards to this chart, about a 10th behind at the moment. Still very early on. It is a much longer chart in comparison to the two earlier Rice picks that we saw. So plenty of opportunity for them to start climbing back up here, but as it stands, it is Ham with the lead for the moment. It is a very fragile lead. They need to be able to maintain the pace now that they have set for themselves. At 9.88, cannot afford to fall from that lest they fall into the clutches of Grape3. And they're hoping to be another break point going their way. And we get into the first drop. And Ham actually finding the first couple of slider breaks through the transition. Grape3 keeping it very clean at the moment. As those doublets going into the LNs. The LNs are the ones that are causing a bit of trouble for Ham at the moment. As they try to at least hang on to the combo for now. Grape3 just making mincemeat of this map so far. Holding on to the full combo for the moment, going into the second third. And we take a quick stock of the situation. Those drops costing Ham dearly for now. 2% the deficit between the two players, accounting for about 42,000 points as it stands. And they get a chance to look at each other's scores, and probably not the sight that Ham wanted to see going into the back half now. But they know they should probably play this out on the off chance that maybe Grape3 finds some sort of miss. As those 1-6 once again going into the LNs. Might just be a bit of an overstream, might just be a bit of a misread on those patterns, but they have been catching Ham out throughout this chart so far. Doing very well to get back up over 98% range, but when your opponent's still holding on to the FC, there's really not much you can do. As we make our way into the last quarter now. Oh, and there is a bit of an accuracy drop from Grape3. Almost overstreaming one of those bursts. Picking up a couple of 50s, I believe. The UR bar spreading widely, but still able to hold on to the FC, which is keeping them ahead for now. Even if they had dropped, it would have needed to have been a complete chain miss on that stream to potentially put a dent in the lead. And at the end of the day, they managed to hang on and make it 3-0 now. The closest the accuracy's been in terms of ratio for both players, but the 200 counts and those misses really doing the damage. And now it will be Grape3 up to pick once again. Would not be surprised if we saw Mirage Guard and Rice 3 come out before going into the speed picks. And sure enough, Rice 3 is going to be the pick. Going to round out this Rice pool. Has served them very well throughout this tournament. And again, for Ham, basically the name of the game is try and capitalize on a potential mistake from their opponent, but they rarely make them. But it isn't to say they can't start now. So MP Start Command comes out. Gonna get on into this fourth map of this best of 11. Grape Tea currently 3 to the good. Ham trying to find an answer here. And gonna need to start getting some breakpoints back as well. A little bit of freeform snapping through this introduction. Not the most straightforward broken streams to kick things off. Very easy to anticipate where the notes are going to be before you get into the real guitar runs of the song. Capitalized by those LNs at the end of some of these transitions. Not the most intrusive, but can catch you a bit off guard if you're not ready for them. And if you release too early, you can really mess up the next stream afterwards. And right now, once again, very close between the two players, back into their comfort zones. 99.87, 99.99 for Grape Tea on the other side. But it is only about 1,200 points. This is catchable. Any accuracy drops can and will be capitalized on if given the opportunity. But the question is, will the opportunity present itself? That is the question that needs to be answered here as we get into the first piano interlude. Drums take over the main patterning being focused on. Before going back into the guitar. Again, these streams aren't the most straightforward. Some of these snappings do change midstream. You got to pay really close attention. And the fact that the OD isn't as generous as some of the other picks we have seen in previous rounds. And both players doing fantastic. Going into the back half, both FCs still on the board, still only separated by about 1,700 points, give or take here or there. It is only 0.1% separating both of them as it stands going into this tiny bit of a respite section. Still a third of the map left to go. Ham trying to close the distance here. Grape Tea still able to stay on this perch that they have stood upon on all three of these rice picks so far. On a bit of an understream from Ham, picking up a couple of 200s, gonna put a bit of a damper on the score, gonna essentially double, and that was only maybe 3 200s going the way of Grape Tea, but that is the fine margins that you have to play with. As we continue on here, an eighth of the chart left to go. Just hoping that there is a misread somewhere along the line before we get into the reprise of the introduction. The bursts get a little bit more aggressive. Got to be able to handle the transitions out of those quick 1/8s into the LNs. Wonderfully done, but as it stands, there is no opportunity for Ham to try and claw their way back into this so far. So a couple more bursts to read through, a couple of transitions that could potentially open a window, but as it stands, the map is coming to an end. And it will be Grape Tea once again capitalizing on a breakpoint to make it 4-0 now. 72 to 131, the closest we have seen in terms of rice ratio, those 6 200s rather, coming from the same section. One stream, the undoing, but it wouldn't have been enough at the end of the day. And it is now up to Ham to find something. And it will be LN1, so their intended pick from before gonna come through here. Alrighty, so getting on into it now. A potential last stand from Ham in terms of having control in this match. Great starts from both players at the moment. A couple of doublets getting thrown into some of these LN streams just for good measure, keeping you on your toes. But as it stands, both of them handling these transitions pretty well. Ham taking a little bit of damage through these transitions, though. A couple of 200s poking their head here and there. Gonna drop their accuracy down ever so slightly. Only about 0.3%, but as we have seen in this match already, the margin for error is so small. But you do kind of need to hope, if you are Ham, that JOKE3 finds an accuracy drop somewhere. And as it was with Hybrid 1, accuracy below 99.9 mark does open the door just a little bit here. As we make our way into the back half, the margin shrinks to about 0.2. And making the recovery run at the moment, despite both of them holding on to the FCs. It just feels like there's a miss somewhere to account for the deficit, but no, it is just accuracy alone at the end of the day. Last quarter of the chart left to go, making their way through this final chorus. And there's a miss from JOKE3. They do find a slip up on one of those 1-6 bursts. And this is the window of opportunity Ham needed to try and capitalize. They hold on to the FC through the hardest section. Just this outro to read through now. There are very few tricks left up this map's sleeve. Just these sneaky bursts here and there. They're able to handle successfully. And it took 4 maps, but Ham finally notches a point on the board to make it 1-4. And with no more rice picks left to go, there is a window of opportunity for them to maybe find a couple more maps. And with that being said, it is JOKE3 up to pick once again. Would not be surprised if we saw something like Wonderflux or Oka Embu coming through, the 2 speed picks that are remaining in this pool. That being said, I mean, JOKE3 has the ability to handle these LNs and hybrids. But no, they're going to stick to what they know. No need to complicate matters here. They're going to go for speed 2 now. Alright, players are already going to get into the 6th map of this best of 11. Ham used 2 key mod. Last map worked out well for them. They're going to try mirror now. Let's see if they can continue this streak of points. playfield flipping accordingly. The two parties face away from each other. And now with it being the speed pick, we do see some of these runs begin to cap out at some pretty ludicrous speeds. I think we crossed 300 BPM pretty comfortably in this map for extended periods of time. These tornado gallops gonna be the real transition point as Ham finds the first drop. Meanwhile, JOKE3 coolest cucumber at the moment, 99.94 for them. This is very much in their wheelhouse in terms of patterning as Ham finds another drop. Oh, but JOKE3 actually finding a bit of an overstream, and they start... Oh no, I think something might have happened here. We just crossed the quarter point of the map and start to wonder. I think we might have crossed the threshold of a restart here. Remains to be seen. They do start playing again, so I wonder if maybe just a technical issue needing to be resolved. Maybe the keyboard disconnected or something. Hopefully it's nothing too serious. Might need to just call this one a mulligan though, as they continue to play. Could potentially chip away at this lead if Ham isn't too careful, but given the discrepancy between the two players, might be unlikely for now. As Ham finds a break. Last third of the chart left to go here. I'm probably calling this one a bit of a wash. Unfortunate it had to happen. JOKE3 was on a bit of a tear there before whatever happened to either their client or their keyboard. It's very likely that their key might have actually fallen off of their keyboard. We have seen multiple instances of that in previous editions of this tournament. As we got into these harder map pools, the keyboard just can't keep up after a point. So it'll be very interesting to see what the explanation is, because if they had managed to avoid that, I fear for the score they would have been able to put through because of how effortlessly they're churning through these ending patterns. I mean, to be fair, Ham is churning through them as well, barely losing any accuracy, still touching this high 98% mark. But you imagine what could have been on this performance as Ham picks up their second point in this match. 82 300s. I just put your finger over the miss column, and that is incredible. We wait to see what the explanation is. Ham pretty confused as well. Our referee asking. And the key flew out. Yep, that is very much a thing that can happen. That is very unfortunate. But hopefully it doesn't happen again. I think this is the second instance we have seen, at least in recent memory, of a key falling out of their keyboard. So it will be Ham to pick once again. Potentially given a bit of a lifeline, but now they need to figure out what could they pick. They mentioned that those were the last maps that they had time to practice. And it is going to be Heracles, so Hybrid 2 going to be the pick here. And hopefully we have no more no more keyboard issues for the remainder of this match. Yeah, and everybody recounting their experiences with Alrighty, so continuing on here. Alrighty, so getting through this introduction, going into the second quarter now. Both players holding on to their FCs. I think Ham is sight reading this chart, so I get to see how their sight reading proficiency is, but given the first couple of misses coming through here, not really expecting the drop to come through. Probably familiar with the song, but the charting, of course, unknown to them for now. Meanwhile, JOKE3 holding on to this 99.8, unsurprisingly. As we make our way into the back half now, about a full percent separating the players at the moment, 30,000 points. The margin, not insurmountable, but gonna need to see a drop similar to how we saw it on LN1 to give Ham a bit of a chance to claw some of this deficit back. Want to transition out of the doublets, going to catch Ham out once again. Gonna grow this lead for JOKE3 for now. Even further as those doublets become triplets. Really aggressive burst through this ending. As only one of them comes through unscathed, holding on to the FC as well. Very impressively, last couple of streams coming through. And it will be JOKE3 securing match point and another break point to bring the match 5-2 now. As we wait to see what their potential final pick is going to be. Wouldn't be surprised if we just saw Speed 1 come through and hope that the keyboard does not fall off the keyboard again. JOKE3 asking if this is a best of 11. It is indeed. Gotta get to 6 points to secure the win here. Oh, they thought it was a best of 13. No, thankfully not. players having some friendly conversation as Grape Team makes their pick, and it is going to be Speed 1. So Wanderflux coming through here. Alrighty, here we go. Potential last map of the finals round. Ham picking up a very early drop. Think about a ghost tap. One of those streams didn't go precisely as planned. But meanwhile, Grape Tea on the other side, very comfortable. When you simplify the streams a little bit and up the speed element, I think it brings them back into the equation. And I don't think the bursts are steady enough to risk the key falling off the keyboard again. So we'll get to see a bit of a precursor of what could have been on speed 2 as Ham tries to climb back up to this mid 98% range. Couple misses to their name, gonna grow this advantage for Grape Tea for now to tune of about 27,000 points. At this point, all eyes are probably on the right side of the screen just to see what the ratio is going to be. As Ham tries their best, but actually able to climb up in terms of accuracy, could potentially meet their goal of hitting that 99% mark. That was basically all they wanted going into this map. It's a couple of quirky LN transitions, not catching either of the players out. As we make our way into the last quarter of the chart now, Grape Tea actually climbing in terms of accuracy. Some very, very fast. I think those are bordering on 1.9, 1.10 snaps. I'm actually unsure how quick some of those bursts are getting here, but needless to say, the overlap is daunting to say the least. As Ham finds a break, but Grape Tea actually making it through with the FC still intact. Oh, the sliver of chart left to go. I think this is a bit of a foregone conclusion, but it is still impressive to say the least. The level of proficiency that Grape Tea has shown throughout this tournament on some of these late game pools, as there's now a bit of a victory lap, and it is going to be the match as well. Grape Tea wins by a score of 6-2 with a ratio of 63. 300s on a map that has bursts that cap out well over 550 BPM. Somebody please test this person, because they are clearly not human. Ham gave it a valiant effort, able to pick up 2 points. One, I imagine they'd argue, wasn't earned, but they did have to play the map anyways. But with that being said, that will officially conclude the finals weekend. And we can now turn our attention to grand finals. Once again, congratulations to Grape Tea securing themselves at the worst second place in this tournament, as we await to see how those matches are going to pan out. We can turn our attention to the final bracket going into next weekend. As you can see, Grape Tea standing alone at the top Gotta wait to see who the competitor on the other side is going to be. As we pan down to the losers grand finals, it is going to be Ellis Ham going against HZ404. Another very formidable foe, able to get through Punish to punch their ticket into the top 3. And we see the aftermath of that losers bracket gauntlet that has finally reached its conclusion. And this weekend we'll find out who wins the 3rd edition of Jay's One Key event. As always, thank you all for watching. As I mentioned at the top of the broadcast, the showcase happened yesterday, so if you haven't seen what these players are going to be playing, go ahead and check it out for yourself. It is absolutely ridiculous, and another very fine custom song made for the grand finals that should hopefully deliver some impressive fireworks. So until then, we'll catch you guys later.